Live, welcome to greeneconomy.tv. I'm your host and facilitator, Byron McDonald. Today on our show, we have St. Francis Tohlang, Corporate Communications and Public Affairs Director at Nestle East and Southern Africa region. He will be going in conversation with Green Economy Journal publisher, Gordon Brown. But before I bring them on, as I say each week, greeneconomy.tv provides insights and intelligence on all sustainability related matters. But by saying that, let's bring on our guests. Hey guys, how are you?
Hi, very good, thank you.
Hi, Byron. Hi, St. Francis. Welcome to the show. What a pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon.
As I do each week, I give the show over to Gordon because he's the publisher with all the relative questions. I will be in the background if you guys do need me. So, Gordon, I'm giving the show over to you.
Thanks very much indeed, Byron. And yeah, like I said, great to chat with you. And representative of Nestle. Nestle is certainly one of the largest firms in the world, massive producer of foodstuffs and consumer outputs, massive employer, creator of value. Perhaps just as a starting point, St. Francis, I could ask you just to give us that quick propeller view of Nestle. I mean, we all know Nestle. We see that brand all the time. But perhaps from a corporate perspective, give us a sense of your markets, give us a sense of some of your key product lines, and then we can move into one or two other things. Thank you.
Thanks, Gordon. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me. So as you rightly mentioned, Nestle is the biggest food and beverage company in the world. We are organized in 3 zones, just by sheer scale. Asia, Oceania, and Sub-Saharan Africa. So that would cover that geography. We have Europe and the Middle East, EMENA, and then we have the Americas, North, South America, and the Caribbean islands. In South Africa, well, in Africa, we are organized in 2 big regions. The Central West Africa region, which is our sister region, that's about 26 countries, really covering West Africa. So strong presence there, and Central and West Africa. And then East and Southern Africa, so that is a region that I am part of. It is a region of 23 countries. And we are from South Africa right to the Horn of Africa, including the Indian Ocean Islands. We also then have North Africa. North Africa, from a reporting line, would report into Zone EMENA, so Europe and the Middle East. In terms of our products, we have about 2,000 brands globally. We are in 189 countries in the world, and our categories range from coffee, infant formula, right through to confectionery, pet food, and general food. So quite a diverse portfolio that we have. And again, the sheer scale of Nestle means that oftentimes we can have a very, very big impact in different areas.
Yeah, I mean, it's in some ways, I mean, it's a very privileged view of the world that you understand things. You understand markets, you understand consumer demand, you understand impacts and so forth. And just looking at it from that global viewpoint, where you are in South and East Africa, I would guess that, yes, of course, these are big markets from a consumer point of view, but I would guess that these markets are possibly even more important to you from an actual production of foodstuffs and crops and so on and so forth that feeds into your value chain. Perhaps just give us a sense of how you see some of the key impacts, perhaps positive and negative, from an environmental point of view, perhaps from a social point of view. I guess it's the things that you deal with every day, think about every day, perhaps. Just give us a quick sense of some of these key impacts, positive and negative, please.
Sure, I lost you a little bit there, Gordon, but I think I caught the gist of your question. So of course, I think Africa remains an important geography for Nestle. And in terms of the business in Africa, as I described, we are organized in 2 regions. And obviously the regions have very nuanced challenges. So, from a business perspective, there are many different challenges. But, as Nestle, and again, given the scale that we have, and that's really an advantage in the sense that we're able to leverage many different learnings from different markets, but at the same time also, really also relying on our head office in terms of support and again, from a strategic perspective, be it from a, environmental stewardship perspective, we really, leverage that strength, particularly if we focus on East and Southern Africa region. Of course, and I'd like to focus on the environment and sustainability angle. We know that waste is a problem, particularly plastic, and so a lot of focus on sustainable packaging, a lot of work that needs to, not only from one single company being Nestle, just generally an approach to how do we tackle the plastic waste challenge. Climate change as well. We know that climate change is really going to have a massive impact on food systems. And so it really is a no-brainer that a company like Nestle would concern itself and really have a vested interest in accelerating our efforts around mitigating climate change, particularly around reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. But at the same time, focusing on, how do we across the entire value chain begin to not only with great vigor and energy, address this challenge, but how do we begin to accelerate? Because, food security is an issue that, particularly in Africa, not just in East and Southern Africa, but across Africa, is of vital importance. We're also in a very water scarce geography or region, particularly East and Southern Africa region. So a lot of the countries in which we operate in, are facing water scarcity issues, but not only water scarcity issues, particularly access to clean, safe water. So those are perhaps some of the three key focus areas for us when it comes to our region, and particularly with that nuance of operating in an African context.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So tell us a little bit more about your RE sustainability initiative. I think that's a key thing we'd like to chat to you about today. Perhaps just give us an overview of that initiative, please.
Sure, Gordon. So it's really difficult to summate in perhaps 2 sentences what RE is about. But if perhaps you indulge me a little bit, just to go into the concept of RE, what it represents, and ultimately how this initiative will come to life. So RE is our sustainability initiative. And the purpose of this initiative is really to consolidate our approach to sustainability. We've had many different initiatives, programs, efforts around sustainability. So sustainability for Nestle is nothing new. Much like most of our peers and big companies, we've concerned ourselves with sustainability and really focusing on this from a business perspective. But what RE then represents is really our approach to sustainability. And there are 3 key pillars within the RE initiative: rethink, reduce, and repurpose. And what that ultimately talks to is, 1, our approach. It also then becomes the basis of how we talk about our sustainability efforts. And it then consolidates all the different initiatives that we've had around sustainability under one umbrella. So when we talk about rethink, it really is around how do we as an organization rethink our relationship to the environment, our impact to the environment, and how that then translates from a business perspective and how we do things. But it's twofold as well. It's not only about us rethinking, we are also going to encourage our partners, we're going to encourage civil society, we're going to encourage consumers to also then rethink their role and what role they play, particularly around the harm to the environment. Reduce, I think, is also very self-explanatory. It is really around how do we reduce our impact on the environment. And again, twofold, not only us as an organization or a single player, but like with Rethink, encouraging different facets of society to reduce their own impact as well. And then finally, repurpose. Repurpose really speaks to how circular economy principles then come to life, particularly in our business. So again, rethinking being the starting point, reducing really speaks to the immediate actions that we can take and will continue into the future. But repurpose speaks to how can we redesign our business so that, you know, repurposing and that circularity is top of mind. And again, twofold, not just us as a single player, but all the different stakeholders, civil society and society at large can, you know, address this particular point of circularity in their homes, in their businesses, in how we also, you know, particularly from a regulatory framework perspective, how that then comes to life in terms of, you know, regulations, laws that encourage and create a conducive environment for circularity.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. And I mean, it's super interesting. I guess, you know, the scale of your business poses challenges at the one side, but also offers you the ability to influence things, especially in the value chain. And that gives you a remarkable opportunity to make real changes and effect real impacts. And you've probably answered this question already, but perhaps just give us the highlights on this. Is, you know, why is sustainability important to Nestle? I mean, you've got 2,000 brands, you've got literally tens of thousands of employees. You've got to make targets. You've got to impress your shareholders. You've got to, you know, you've got to do all the stuff that it takes to run a business successfully across the whole world. I mean, why is sustainability important?
Sure. So I think it's a no-brainer that sustainability would be an important focus area for a company the size of Nestle. So if we look at our purpose statement, which really is the true north, the guiding beacon for the organization, it's unlock the power of food to enhance quality of life for everyone today and for generations to come. Now, the connection to sustainability or the planet or environment may not necessarily be that obvious when you look at our purpose statement. But the beautiful thing about our purpose statement is that, one, it's guided by values of respect, not only respect for ourselves as individuals and employees that work for the company, respect for our communities in which we operate in, respect for others, but more importantly, and I think this is an important call out to make, respect for the planet and the environment. So that really features quite high in terms of the guiding beacon, our purpose statement. We then have three impact areas when we look at our purpose statement. The first one being individuals and families, the second one being communities, and I've touched on a little bit on that, particularly around individuals and families. You know, the food that we provide, making sure that it's nutritious, it is the, you know, healthiest that it can possibly be. And then communities, of course, we operate in communities, and that really speaks to our creating shared value business philosophy, which really, you know, talks to the fact that we as an organization cannot only be focused on profit. We want to share the value that we create. And finally, the third pillar within our purpose and values framework is the planet. So particularly when we look at the planet, we recognize that food systems in themselves tap into a lot of the resources in the environment. And so as a responsible corporate citizen, it really shouldn't come as a surprise that we recognize that to enhance the quality of life, we have to make sure that we're stewarding the resources that we tap into. We make sure that the impact that we have on the environment is really minimal. And in fact, we have a commitment, a global commitment, where we're looking to have a zero impact on the environment by 2030. Now that's a massive undertaking. But again, leveraging the size of Nestle, so the scale that we have, the influence that we could advance as an organization, the size of Nestle, we believe that we can really and truthfully get to that ambition by 2030. And of course, it has to be backed by strong action. So it's one thing to have an ambition, but it has to be supported by very clear roadmaps. And we've got a number of those at a global level, which are then cascaded per the geographies that are outlined, and right down to country level, and even communities in which we operate in. So it's one thing to have the ambition, which we have, and we have a number of those pertaining to the environment and sustainability, but I think the most reassuring thing, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a corporate spokesperson or representative of the company, but
So we
it
just
is
lost.
backed by real intent and.
We just lost you there for 3 seconds before you said real intent.
Oh, wow. I'd actually expanded quite a bit, but just to summate really quickly, real intent, I think, is key, because we've got these roadmaps, but in order to bring them to life, you need action on the ground, and it has to go beyond lip service.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually interesting, this position that large multinationals have, and why in many cases it does, as you say, well, let's say it is a no-brainer for you to focus on sustainability because of this long-term vision that these types of businesses have. Your boards of directors, especially at the top level, they're not thinking about next year. They're not even thinking about 3 years or 5 years. They have to. Their mandate is actually to plot the course for this business into the future. So it's also about understanding where the weaknesses are, where the failures are that might undermine the business's success in the future, and addressing those proactively. And many of those things are linked directly to what falls under this heading of sustainability. So, it's easy to criticize big business, in this case, big food, and wave the stick and be critical. And frankly, whatever you do, whatever you say, you set yourself up for criticism. So I think, from a green economy point of view, I think it's fundamental that companies like Nestle do lead, and it's great to see that you are leading, and you have these firm principles and visions in place. Just talking a bit more practically about the topic, your third point under your reprogram, repurpose, I'd like to just talk briefly about circular economy. Now, that's a bit of a buzzword, but it would give us perhaps just a very quick understanding of what circular economy means, and then perhaps bring in some examples of how Nestle has adopted that as a system to give us a deeper understanding. That'd be great.
So you rightfully mentioned circular economy has become, big buzzword. It's a term that I think is finding and gaining a lot of traction, in actual fact. And I think that's the right direction that we need to be moving in. I think we need to be concerning ourselves and really embracing this idea of circularity. So what we know about linear economies is particularly this make, use, and then dispose. So that's really been the model in which economies really, I think, dictated, or let's say it's really born out of the industrial revolutions of the past. And so with a circular economy, it really looks at reuse of materials and trying to find value. So waste almost becoming an input into a new restorative or regenerative process. And so that's really, in a nutshell, the circular economy, or this idea of circularity. I use circularity under duress because it's many different scholars and schools of thought in terms of circularity, but ultimately, if you look at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which I think have really established themselves as a thought leader in this space of circular economy. It's really that it's waste as an input into a restorative and regenerative process or product. It's really looking at reuse of materials so that and the value thereof is never really diminished. It's moving away from a make, use, and dispose, and really, again, I guess the circularity, or this idea of this virtuous circle. It's an input into another, and the cycle continues and continues, and becomes a loop system in many ways. So, when you talk about the practicalities of circular economy, the first call out I'd like to perhaps make is, I tend to find that when people are conversing or talking about the circular economy, it generally kind of moves into recycling. And I think the circular economy goes beyond recycling. Of course, that's an important aspect, and probably one of the more tangible ways for the layman, myself included, can really then conceptualize and bring to life this idea of circularity. I think it's a good example, but it goes beyond that. So when we talk about the practicalities of circular economy, or applying the principles of a circular economy in business, I think that's where it starts getting exciting. And quite honestly, I don't think that it is a hard thing to incorporate into your business. So, for example, within Nestle, we talk about sustainable by design, and through that, we really look to incorporate this idea of circularity, and there are a few projects that are on the go. Some are at the infancy stage, where I wouldn't at this stage particularly share or divulge too much information on a public platform. But when we look at circularity, it really is around many different ways in which building business models, new business models that can embody this idea of circularity. I think about alternative delivery systems, right, which is one way, or one let's say one of the ways in which we are looking to tackle the scourge of plastic waste is really around alternative delivery systems, where you're going to find in the future that consumers bring their own packaging or reusable packaging to the store, use dispensers. And again, this is not necessarily anything new, but it's really around how do we accelerate this. And that in itself is circular by design. It is sustainable by design, because then you're taking the need for single-use packaging out of the equation. So I think that's just one example, and you can look at circular models within your business in different iterations, and I don't particularly think it has to be complicated. It's about what is the end product of this process, or what is the waste, and I use waste in inverted commas, and is there a way in which we could repurpose that particular waste into something new, or could it be an input into a different process? So we find that in recycling right now, where you from incineration, recycled content or new things are being created from recycled plastic. So that's an example, and I think in itself the principle is actually very, very simple. I always say that for innovation to happen, you need necessity plus creativity, and that will result in innovation. And so if we, as business, as individuals, as society, begin to think around what is the waste, and how could we repurpose that waste to be a new input into something new, or into a different process, so that it's not waste in the way that we understand it. Gordon, I don't know if you're on mute. I'm struggling to hear you.
Thank you. I was on mute. Yeah, so thanks very much for that. And we are starting to now head towards the end of the show. We're running out of time. I did want to talk to you more about how you saw the consumer and the people in the public sort of engaging as part of this function of sustainability. But I'm going to ask you to answer the next series of questions and then conclude. And just from my side, thank you very much indeed for being on the show. And we'll ask Byron to play us out once you've answered this question and made your final remarks. But yeah, so from my point of view, the final sort of inquiry for your side revolves around, what does Nestle really hope to achieve with this re-initiative? How will Nestle, achieve this goal of net carbon emissions by 2030? And maybe you can touch on one or two more projects. And finally, if you can tell us, look, what does this mean for you to be part of these initiatives? So thank you very much.
Wow, Gordon, in 5 minutes, let me try keep it as brief as possible. So I'm very passionate about this space, and I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's the urgent thing to do, and to be concerning ourselves around sustainability issues, because I think on a personal level, I believe that the planet, we always say save the planet. I think the planet will regenerate itself. What we should be saying is save humanity, because I don't think we'll be part of that regeneration or part of the equation in the future.
Oh, so you've got something good going there. We just lost you again for a second. I don't know if you can hear me on that side.
Yeah, so Byron, I mean, obviously, while we wait for St. Francis to rejoin us, it's so interesting. You look at these large corporations, and as I say, it's easy to beat them with a stick. Every time there's something goes wrong or there's some issue that you can pick on them, and that's good, because they need to be accountable for their actions and so
exactly.
But it is this, they really do have a gilded opportunity. They've got the capital, they've got the market oversight, they've got this long-term plan to continue to generate their products and sell their brands into global markets.
I seem to have
so they are
lost
inherently being good custodians of the environment is actually ties up very closely with their business. Sorry, St. Francis, we lost you there, but perhaps you can just continue making your concluding remark. You were talking about how it's important to you and how it's more about saving humans than saving the world, and I agree with that.
And that was a lot when I was interested in,
Yeah, so to tie back to RE, so what do we hope to achieve with RE? So as mentioned in the beginning, just really creating the context and contextualizing this initiative, is we want to lead a paradigm shift. So as mentioned, RE is really twofold. It speaks to us as an organization, all the different initiatives and efforts around sustainability, particularly rethink, reduce, and repurpose.
It's just funny that
but we want to drive this paradigm. We will be having different campaigns that bring that to life. We'll have ways in which we will engage different facets of society, whether it's through thought leadership, seminars or symposiums, whether it's through very consumer-focused campaigns, where the call to action will be very clear: rethink, reduce, repurpose. And so ultimately, we want to lead this paradigm shift through, again, as I mentioned, demonstrating action. And we believe that we've got very, very strong initiatives pertaining to caring for water, which is around water stewardship. You mentioned our commitment around, greenhouse gas emissions. and our commitment to reducing the impact on climate change. That commitment is actually 2050. We have a 2030 commitment around zero impact on the environment in our operations. Plastic waste by 2025, we want to have our packaging either reusable or recyclable. So there are many of those commitments, and through we want to make it relatable. We want to make it a simple way in which we can talk about our initiatives, but at the same time, to your point, bring people into the fold in terms of this paradigm shift that we're not hoping, we are going to lead.
Love that. Love that.
What a
Excellent,
pleasure.
excellent conclusion. Although we lost you in a bit parts in between there, but I get the whole feel and I get what you guys are doing. And I think you were off air when Gordon was saying it's easy to slate the bigger companies, but let's commend you guys when you do bring your part. And you actually thinking about the society, you're thinking about the planet, you're thinking about everything else. Yep. But thank you so much for sharing so much insight on this platform, because that's what we want to do. We want to expose these type of things. We want to educate people. And thank you again. Thank you to Nestle and thank you to you for being on.
Thank you very much for having me and for great discussion.
Okay. Enjoy your day further. I'll conclude the show. You guys have a beautiful day further. Bye bye.
Thanks, Byron.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
St. Francis.
Cheers, cheers.
Excellent, excellent. So much insight. Like Gordon said, also, we are so easy to slate the bigger companies, but yet we have to commend them. And like you said, also, is innovating. They're thinking of new ways to look after the planet, especially during the time. And I'm going to sound repetitive. During the time we're going now with this COVID and everything, we need to understand humans' lives are important also, because we are a species that loves to survive. And how can we survive without looking after this planet? This planet will regenerate itself, but for us to regenerate ourselves, we can't. We need to look after the planet first, and which that is what they are doing. So I'm not going to bubble further. I'm just going to say, as I say each week, greeneconomy.tv provides insights and intelligence on all sustainability related matters.